And that brings us to the final session for the day, which is a Digital Transformation Masterclass, Winning in the Age of the Digital Tsunami, Strategic Traps and the Innovator's Dilemma. And for this, I'd like to welcome on stage Professor Rajnish Das, the former professor at Cornell and IIM Ahmedabad. This has been a staple feature in our Enterprise Innovation Summit in Bengaluru and Mumbai, and we're glad to have Professor Das with us here again. Professor Das, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks. So a very good afternoon to all of you, and thanks to Dynamic CIO, thanks to Rahul and the organizers for having me here in this Enterprise Innovation Summit. This is the third talk that I'm giving after Bengaluru and Mumbai. Before we start, I do understand that you had a pretty long day, lots of discussion, very interesting discussion. So let's try to keep it as interactive as possible. A brief about myself. My name is Rajnish Das. I have been into technology and business research and practice at a firm level, at a national level, and also have worked globally. I have been teaching at IIM Ahmedabad. I taught there for around 10 years, then I moved to Cornell. And now we have set up an outcome-oriented executive education initiative called Catalyst. And I'm extremely passionate about innovation and impact of digital in the business. So in the next 88 minutes, 46 seconds, we will only talk business. We will not talk technology at all, right? I've done a lot of work in India, with the current Prime Minister, in setting up national ID, financial inclusion. So many work, and a lot of these examples will also kind of come live when we walk through. But in my more than 25 years of experience, what I have seen is that the secret of leadership is not about having the right answers, but is about trying to ask the right questions. That's a Socratean way of looking at things, trying to ask the right questions, if you are lucky, at the right point in time, right? So that's what we will be doing. So what I want from you is, before I kind of jump in about what we are planning to cover today, I just want to understand if you have any key questions, because when you're talking about digital business and innovation, there is a lot to cover, right? And these are, in a normal B school, we would have kind of at Cornell or at London Business School, we would have done this as a full session, full credit kind of course. But if I can have some understanding about if you have any key questions, otherwise, believe me, I have tons of questions, right? I have lots of questions. So for example, then that helps us in kind of taking a dialogue and having a dialogue and kind of taking this forward. Otherwise, if you don't have any question, if you have already kind of thought, yes, sir, please.
See, the customers are always dynamic for all the business.
I'm sorry?
Customer for the dynamic for all the business.
Yeah.
How will I capture understand immediately to the customer's mood and...
You want to sell?
Pardon?
Customer mood, okay.
Yeah. So how can we grab the customer as least possible?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Are your customers human beings? No, customers can be robots these days as well, right? So, yeah. So if you have customers who are humans, understand humans have a mind. And it's perfectly legit to have a change of mind and a change of mood, right? So, any other question? Any other questions? We'll come to this.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks. What's your name?
Sailen Chaudhary.
Sailen, yes. Yes. Any other questions? Yeah, please.
So the question is...
Can I have your name?
Anilesh.
Anilesh. Okay, Anilesh. Yes.
So the question is related to the transformation. So something related to the education system and the corporate. So this is just a feeler.
Digital business.
Sorry?
Digital business is our focus. Anything else after session?
Okay. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
So basically my thought process towards the corporate is that corporate is using this term transformation as a jazzy word, and a lot of difficult words are getting used because this sometimes back I was just having a discussion with one of a mid-sized company owner.
Why don't you please sit?
Yeah, mid-sized company person, and he was facing little difficulty in understanding what is this transformation.
You're
Transformation is a very simple and a beautiful, I would say, a beautiful word that industry is using. However,
What is
lot
the
of
question?
jazzy.
What is the question?
So, as a professor, as an education system or a college, so do you think that this word is becoming
After
little
session,
jazzy?
nothing to do with digital. Yeah. Any other question? Digital business, right, is our focus. Otherwise, I have a whole range of topics: education system, this, that, politics, and you know how we are, right? We know everybody, everything about everybody. I know what my classmate Saurav Ganguly should have done in a particular test match. It doesn't matter, right? Any other question? Okay, right, we don't have any question. So which basically means that you are really exhausted, right? You have too much of neural load, right? Your cerebral cortex neurons are full with so much of data that it needs to be only tomorrow morning, right? You will get rid of the excess information that perhaps you have stored. Yes, sorry, there was some point.
I was saying customer experience is something which
Yeah,
makes us to think about digital transformation.
of course. Very important point. Very important point. Just for example, I have many questions around that, right? We are kind of juggling with many, many questions. For example, who taught us to post pictures of food on social media, right? But that's a global phenomenon. People post pictures of food. Why do women, when they post their pictures alone, gets more likes and comments than when they put pictures with their life partners or spouses? Where did people learn all these different ways of making faces and putting it on social media? Their own pictures. Why are people doing this throughout the day, right? Many, many questions. Because all these are linked to who we are, how we behave, right? And when I say how we behave, understand, if I crack a joke, and we'll cover a part of that if we get time. If I crack a joke and you smile, do you understand what's actually happening inside you? Millions of years of evolution has ensured that there is a gene that releases a protein. When you are kind of getting that kind of input, then that enzyme is released so that muscle movement happens, right? And interestingly, humans are the only primates on this world that shows teeth when we are happy. The rest of the primates shows their teeth as part of aggression, right? And that's what we say, we are smiling, we are laughing. Nobody else on this planet, fortunately, unfortunately, smiles or laughs, right? For example, you are showing me teeth. Had I not been a human, I would have perhaps have a fight or flight syndrome, right? Now, all this question comes up, and you know what I will try to do is that these are some of the issues. These are 5 key topics I want to cover in the time that I have. Starting with, so if you can also tell me if you want me to focus on any one of these topics. So, talking about how sector after sector globally is going through change, right? And at one point in time, when I was teaching at IIM Ahmedabad, and I started the first CIO certification program in India, lots of CIOs, used to come. So much so that in the first year we had 3 sections. You run from one room to another room. The major point of concern was alignment of technology with business. And that was a very interesting point, because for doing business, you need major resources like finance and human resources. And nobody was talking about this fact, how do I align finance with business? How do I align human resources with business? But technology alignment of technology with business was a major concern. Now, if you start looking around you, whenever you are talking about transformation, I'm using this word, Animesh. Animesh is your name, right? Anilesh, okay. So whenever you are talking about strategic transformation, you cannot have strategic transformation without digital transformation in place. Across industries, across cultures, across sectors. And then I want to cover something as we did a work when we were teaching at Cornell, World Economic Forum came to us and said, they gave us two very interesting questions. So I want to discuss very quickly about the silent revolutions, that are going around us, and these are kind of game changers. I also want to talk about some of the strategic traps we are finding when we are looking at Fortune 500 companies. Believe me, if you look at Fortune 500 company leased 30 years ago versus today, you will find 80% of the companies present 30 years ago don't exist today in that list. Many of them have got closed. Many of them have got merged, bought over, right? So they do not exist. And when I'm talking about Fortune 500 and not Forbes 500, because Fortune 500 will list purely by annual revenue. So you are talking about behemoths, extremely large organizations, global scale, right? And something happened. Something happened in the last 30 years that they are not there, right? So then, what are those dilemmas? What are the traps that these organizations have faced? And then when we talk about digital, one of the challenges, we are finding across the globe, saying that for non-technology companies, and this is a very interesting aspect. When it comes to buying your personal technology, the tech that you will use yourself, the smartphone that you buy, the laptop that you will buy, you will never pass on the decision right to somebody else, right? So you will happily go, you will buy an iPhone 14 Pro Max, paying 1.5 lakhs, 1.6 lakhs, whatever. There was one point in time when there were training sessions. I was part of my guide was driving this automation of railway ticketing system. So there were training sessions that had to be conducted. There was a manual that was given. Nobody teaches people how to use an iPhone, WhatsApp, Google Pay. Those days are gone, right? So, but one of the questions that still remains, an important question is, how do I create more value for the organization? What is the basis of value creation? And what are the pathways of creating that value? Can I measure that value? Can I justify if I say ROI, or if I say value creation and all this stuff? And then my CFO also comes and says, typically from financial terms, saying this is IRR, this is ROI, this is NPV, whatever. Not all tech initiatives or digital initiatives can pass as strategic initiatives, right? So we need to know what are those value creation areas, and then how can we drive our digital mindset and culture for driving digital business. So these are the broad 5 points. I have limited time of 90 minutes. These are the broad 5 points I want to cover. If you want me to focus on something else or give more emphasis, happy to do that. Now, if you start looking at from a sectoral business perspective, you will find that some of the key assumptions of doing business are getting challenged, right? So customers are talking our need has changed from traditional product or services to simpler, and these are very important words, to simpler and faster, hyper-personalized service. And what we say is that this is a homogeneously heterogeneous requirement. There is a homogeneity in having a heterogeneity per se. Everybody is talking about my phone, my PIN, my Netflix, my Google account, my this, my that, which basically driving, in a sense, a lot of narcissism in the society, right? It's perfectly okay to touch somebody, but it's not at all okay to pick up the phone and unlock and take a photo, even with your family members, right? So that privacy, the sense of privacy with your gadget, has been very different. And if you start looking at some of the data, some of the research, you will start seeing this is a research from the Capgemini Financial Services. People want low-cost offerings, simpler, faster, better features, personalized, right? Financial services. Now, so people want better things, simpler, faster, hyper-personalized. It's only made for them. It's not a generic product per se. And I can take examples of sector after sector, right? So for example, this is a World Economic Forum report on digital transformation happening in the aviation sector. This is the automobile mobility sector. If you see, the market cap of Tesla is around 2.5 times, more than 2.5 times of the next big one called Toyota, and what they are doing is giving hyper-personalized services, right? Talking about insurance, hyper-personalized. They will kind of proactively come and say, do this, do that, and all the stuff. And that is changing our organizational DNA from operations to more of experience. That question came, right? Experience, and I'll come to that a bit more. And so this, for example, is from Alibaba's Singles Day, right? So what Alibaba did is that they launched, and note the date, November 11, 2020. So they launched, in competition to Valentine's Day, something called a Singles Day. It's November 11, 1-1 and then 1-1, right? So singles can also kind of gift each other. In one day, they made a sale of $74 billion in a single day in high pandemic time, November 11, 2020. Compared to that, the Black Friday sales, which they were kind of tom-tomming around 2019, is around 1/10 of the revenue that Black Friday was able to generate. And what is that Alibaba did? Alibaba, set up an experience of competing, of playing while people are shopping and kind of gifting, right? So they will do something, they will then take a picture, share, they get ratings, they kind of win small prizes, right? Prill. This lady has won a Prill, right? And that becomes very exciting. So the retail started transforming not only from a purpose of fulfillment, where you see Amazon has kind of taken it to a different level altogether, and our mind has got Amazonized or Uberized, per se, but there are dimensions of personalization, there are dimensions of entertainment, right, that are coming and transforming a sector like retail. Similarly, if you look at banking, you will see, banking is also evolving. So from convenience, which was there from going to a teller to coming to an ATM and things like that, now people are talking about a digitized enterprise. I can share the slides with you, sir, if you want. Yeah? Yeah. A digitized enterprise and talking about business models. Similarly, if you look at the basis of doing business, aviation, electric aviation is on the anvil, right? Look at Tesla, right? The whole mobility sector is going through a lot of change. And hence, automotive sector is not only talking about connected travelers, talking about autonomous vehicles, talking about digitized enterprise, digital manufacturing, what all can be done. We are doing, work with a very large automobile company in India. And so we cover top 100 people. And there are 94 innovation ideas that came out. 94. Out of that, so we clustered those 94 ideas into around 24 cohorts. And then we went back to global faculties, venture capitalists from Silicon Valley, and said, what kind of impact will these 24 cohorts create? 8 of them are disruptive, right? So, yeah, please. No.
There has to be some focus from where it is emanating the connected traveler, digital enterprise.
This one?
Yes, exactly.
So this is how the customer, what goes to the customer, right? Yeah.
So it has to be.
Yeah. Similarly, healthcare is also kind of transforming. if you look at, Apple's healthcare investments, humongous. In fact, the healthcare revolution has helped us having in-person meetings after something like Corona. And competition, per se, is also transforming. So the competition is going away from traditional to new entrants and tech firms, and non-traditional competition. For example, look at this. This is Netflix CEO who told that their major competitor is human sleep. People should not sleep, right, and should watch Netflix. Look at the impact of that. This is 2017, 11/6/2017 news article, right? We have a new term called binge watching that never existed. Now we are all familiar with this word called binge watching. And hence, partnership is also kind of moving from sectoral or supply chain. For example, if you look at any of the large organizations, they will be the largest player in their supply chain. It's going into creating ecosystems. For example, how difficult is it for competing with the big tech companies that we say that these big tech companies are cross-border innovators, right? So you take up Maruti, they will be in a particular sector. You take up State Bank of India, they're in a particular sector. But if you take up something like a Google or somebody like an Amazon, you will find they are across sectors, right? So these are cross-border innovators. Now, and then the partnership, hence the drive for partnership is also changing. Now, some of the revolutions, that are happening around us are very interesting. And I want to talk about these 3 things about the type of exponential time that we are kind of living through. So when at Cornell, World Economic Forum came and gave us 2 very interesting problems. So they said that, thank you. So they said that, everybody knows that the world around us is changing very fast. See, first question is, how fast is fast? So which basically means that you are not only talking about change, but you are also talking about the velocity of change, right? So you are talking about the first order derivative of change. How fast is fast? And the second question is, what are those drivers? Now, when we started looking at, so many faculties, many groups, many institutes, we came together, we started looking at, and now you can't look only into one particular sector. You have to kind of look at broadly how we have been changing as a human society, right, over the last many years. And one thing that came up is, as time is progressing, the quantum of time that we as human beings are taking for adopting a particular technology is getting squeezed as time is passing by. What does it mean? So it took us around 150, 200 years for adopting a technology like railways, right? It took us around 150 years, 125, 150 years to adopt a technology like telegraph, around 100 years for electricity. How much time did it take for social media to be adopted? How much time did it take for instant messaging, right, to happen? And this is one cue. So for example, if you are not emailing your family members, that means that technology is just about to die, right? So if you are not using it, if you are forced to use it, and if you are not using it with your free choice, then understand that technology is just about to go out of the system, right? And that's a very important question, because as I was discussing, when people come and buy their technology, they choose their piece of technology. With the same set of people come to office, they think that there is someone else who will make that choice on their behalf, right? So, and that's a major gap. Now, when we start plotting this nicely, in management professors, B school professors, we are very good in plotting 2x2 matrices. So if I say this is change, and this immediately throws 2 very important questions towards us. So if I say this is change, and if I say this is time, definitely the change that's happening around us, we found was exponential in nature. Remember class 10 mathematics. Now here is challenge number 1. So the first challenge is, for an exponential function, the first order derivative or the velocity, when you say how fast is fast, is going to be a steeper exponential function, right? So which basically means the rate of change is steeper in nature. And so this is still, so the velocity is very high. But the major challenge that comes up here is as follows. So suppose you are at point A, and then if you take 2 points, point A and point B, the mind that nature has given us, we can only think linearly. So if you ask anyone and say, where do you see yourself 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, the best thing that they can do is do a projection of a future, which actually doesn't exist as of today, basis the data that they have been able to collect for the last 5-10 years, right? And they will do a linear projection. Whoever you are, you may be a Menser, your IQ may be higher than Albert Einstein, doesn't matter. We cannot, as human beings, fathom exponential change, because what we can at best do is do a linear projection. And here is the challenge that comes up. So at this point, if I am realistic, I have got lots of data, the projection of future that I will do is different than what reality is. And this gap will keep increasing with time. This gap will keep increasing as time passes. So if we are not able to be realistic, be data-centric, accept things that may not be correct, right, as we have kind of grown, maybe we kind of grew up in a very different world. This is a very different world now. Now, so that it becomes very important, right? So that's what we say. What we started saying is living on tangents. Because if you have to thrive, then your tangent has to be at point B, right? So which basically means at every point of an exponential curve, you have to keep learning and unlearning. And how does an exponential change look like? So this is, is an example which will give you an idea of how exponential change looks like. So this is Lake Michigan's volume in fluid ounces, same as our brain's capacity in calculations per second. And as per Moore's law, the computer processing power doubles every 18 months. Now, so if you start looking at the same rate as per Moore's law, if we start filling water in Lake Michigan, from 1950s till pretty late, you will not find too much of water in the lake. It's only in the last 3-4 years that it's completely filled up, right? So that exponential change kind of happens that fast, which we will not be able to fathom. Now then the question that comes up is that, what are the drivers that are driving such changes, right? And I want to spend around 5 minutes in discussing about the 3 major drivers or revolutions, that we started finding. The first change that's happening around us, definitely it's a no-brainer, is digital revolution that's happening around us. And what is happening in digital revolution? In digital revolution, what is happening is that our processing power is increasing, right? Doubling as per Moore's law every 18 months. The volume, the veracity, the variety of data that we are able to collect is increasing. At one point in time, we used to say, we need more data, more information, right, to process and to kind of make better decisions. Today, we are drowned with information. There is information overload, right, per se. Now, with better science kind of evolving, with better analysis power, with our ability to capture more data easier and faster, and with companies like Uber and Amazon coming and connecting nodes, a network effect has set in, right? So what I mean is like this. So typically a company will come and say, I am a company and I have multiple customers, customer 1, customer 2, customer 3. What Uber or Amazon did is that they said, okay, so these are nodes and I will connect the nodes, right? The moment you connect the nodes, the network effect is exponential, is 2 to the power n. So if you say you have 100 nodes versus if you say you have 2 to the power 100 nodes, you can understand how exponential it is, right? So that kind of causes a lot of digital revolution around us. The second type of revolution that's happening around us is social revolution. And let us talk about India. Let's not talk about China or South Korea, Brazil, other areas. Let's talk about India. In India, what's happening is our literacy rate is going up. In our previous generation, the literacy rate of women coming into workforce was substantially lesser. Now that is also increasing. And what that means is that our families have become roommate families, because in metros like Gurgaon or Mumbai or Bangalore, right, if you want to have a decent life, then both husband and wife need to work. Now, if both husband and wife need to work, and if they are working, then they are like roommates. I don't know if you have ever lived with a roommate in hostel life, which basically means that at best you can have breakfast together, then God knows where the other person is, right? In our previous generation, there was no dearth of time. There was dearth of money. In current generation, there is no dearth of money because husband and wife both are working, but there is dearth of time. And with a dearth of time, there are many, many effects that are at a social level that are coming. For example, we have coined this term called spending quality time. Have you heard quality time in family? Our respective dads had never heard quality time. And what has happened when you try to spend quality time? You are actually trying to spend whatever you have in abundance, money. So you will keep swiping your cards at a higher frequency, and you will say, I'm spending quality time. This weekend is quality time, right? And needs are becoming wants. Wants, right? And there is a huge drive, I will not say greed, but the brand recognition. When we were growing up, we never thought that mithai can be, I'm a bong, right? So I kind of grew up with rasgullas and mishti. I never knew that rasgullas can be branded. This Diwali, your love and affection for your personal and professional colleagues will depend on the perceived brand value of the products that you are sending, right? And this also has impacted our children because, right, when we were growing up, we used to see father, dad as dad. Now, because we don't have time, friendship is replacing kinship, which basically means when we were, and these are studies from India, right? When we were growing up, I'm 50, we knew all our cousins by name. We also knew where is school, where's class, their first girlfriend, their breakup, we knew everything. My daughter doesn't perhaps even know that she has cousins. And I don't know if you had, but in my childhood, the summer vacation and the winter vacation used to happen in either Nana's place or Dadi's place. But now this has got changed with traveling with friends, friendship club. Why? Because you can choose like-minded people. You can't choose relatives. You can choose friends. You don't have dearth of money. You have dearth of time, right? So it's very important where you spend quality time. So we tend to become friends to our children, and we want to give them costly things, right? So you will give an iPad, iPhone, kya chahiye beta is, and the kid doesn't even want you to become her friend. She has her friends, right? And we do not, so she is looking up to you as a parent, as a guardian, right? So you are trying and you are failing miserably, right? More than that, more than that, there is an extension of self that is happening, right? The current generation in India is extremely high on spirituality. Our previous generations were not this spiritual, quote unquote. Why? Because it's an extension of self. You not only want to have the best in this life, but we are trying to ensure that beyond this life also, right? And spiritual gurus come to us through Facebook. So there's a huge social revolution happening, humongous social revolution. Let's not forget that we are evolved primates. So when we talk about adoption, making choice, you will find a lot of primate behavior comes into place. A lot of primate behavior. The third revolution happening around us is expectation revolution. More than 100 million people, only in two countries, India and China, has come out of poverty. On those weekends where you want to spend quality time with your family, you have bought a SUV that you can't drive in Gurgaon traffic, right? Nobody does off-roading, although they buy all these 4-gear SUVs. And I was talking to Mahindras and the Marutis. Yes, how many of them actually do off-roading? Nobody does, because most of us don't even know how to change a tire if punctured. We don't know. They have come out of poverty. Now, in quality time you are trying to spend, you want to say, chalo, let's go to the rural side. You will drive miles and miles, you will not see a thatched roof. Till you see a thatched roof, your ekdam asman saaf hai, the air is so clean. Ye feeling nahi aata hai na? So, it's very difficult to find thatched roof. Why? Because there's no dearth of money. So, poverty is getting elevated. And these same 100 million people who have come out of poverty, right, and they are this is neo middle class in India, at least. And they expect the same kind of things for their children, same kind of education, same kind of healthcare, same kind of entertainment. And the challenge is, at the same challenge, Elon Musk just tweeted around a month ago, look at this. If you look at yourself and the people that you know here and there, how many children would you have? 1, maximum 2. So 2 people, simple basic arithmetic, right? 2 people getting married, coming together in whatever form, they have 1 child. Population should go down. It's going up. 2 people coming together, having 2 children. Population should remain constant. It's going up. And this is a humongous problem. Why? Because at your level, you guys are high IQ. Your spouse must also be high IQ, right? Otherwise, chances are very low that you would have a happy marriage. Because, all the magic kind of vanishes after 6 months, 1 year. Then you start getting to see each other brushing teeth, right? So if you're not high IQ, so high IQ people have started having lower reproductive rate, and population is going up. Who are these people, right, who are coming? They are expecting the same kind of thing that you would have achieved in your life. Expectation revolution, right? So with Professor Seth, we kind of did some work, and these are the 8 drivers that we found on childcare, on debt financing and things. Now, when you talk about AI, right, this is 100 years of, I'm somehow extremely uncomfortable in somebody taking pictures constantly, yes. It distracts me. Thank you. This is a 100-year study of AI by Stanford. And you will find that there are very well-defined booms that exist, right? So boom 1 is around 1960s. Boom 2, expert systems, when we were kind of growing up. Boom 3 is the current boom that's happening in 2010, when people are talking about AI for social good, autonomous weapons, vehicles, deep learning, and there is a lot of social excitement and concern. And if you start looking at what AI has been doing, computer vision, talking about AI-based kind of bots that can, conversational AI, that's coming up. This is an example of conversational AI being used in the hospitality sector in UK. You see the abandonment rate has come down in 2 months from 40% to near 0, and the success rate is substantially going up. And there are many such examples. This is conversational AI that's kind of having its footprint across industries when you're talking about healthcare, when you're talking about insurance, banking, technology, everywhere. A GPT-3, which is the conversational AI open kind of system, posted comments on Reddit for a week, and nobody even notice that a bot is posting on social media. This is Guardian, 2020 September, posted an article which was written by a bot, right? And if you look at, it's very difficult to come and say it's not written by a human being. And Microsoft in China has launched a AI-based girlfriend called Xiaoxi. And Xiaoxi is this young, good-looking, educated, late teenage girl that converses with its boyfriends. Can you imagine how many boyfriends Xiaoxi would have got? How many? 600 million. 600 million. Microsoft says this is digital titillation. And Xiaoxi is able to converse in double meaning, kind of words. So for example, if you say, if she sees a photo of tourists pretending to hold the Leaning Tower of Pisa, she will ask, do you want to hold it for you? Who are these people who are kind of using Xiaoxi's services day in, day out? And it's working, right? So it's, this bot has 600 million users. Her fans tend to be from a very specific background. Chinese, male, lower income backgrounds. Expectation revolution, right? They expect a girlfriend who is educated, good looking, right? They expect somebody who is so funny, can do digital titillation and things. So there are multiple, this is the Japan's cabinet office that has just launched a Society 5.0 roadmap. And I find it very interesting because if you go in Japan, you will still find people using floppy disks. From that bubble to Society 5.0, right, where they are talking about it's majorly AI-based, and AI kind of would help in automatic driving. AI will kind of propose a person. So it will also start proposing, right? Automatic production of robots in factory. So many changes are happening around us, right? And very fast-paced changes, right? Scientists in a healthcare system, they are coming and saying, is death a disease? Can that be cured? One of my friends from Colombia got a $25 million research grant to find out what genetic engineering can be done so that human life can be elongated. Scientists, this is 31/8/2022, have found secrets of an immortal jellyfish. This is last year, how to extend human lifespan. They are saying have flavonoids, fatty, and these are all AI-based programs that are being used, right? So this is all kind of systems. And also the good news is also, have a bit of alcohol here and there. And there are many kind of propositions like this saying that, can you upload your mind into cloud, right? Well, what will happen in 2022, which is a merged physical and a digital world where you're talking about the medical community having bionic eyes. So maybe, you and I may not die out of a heart attack. Maybe we will survive with a bionic heart or a bionic kidney or liver per se. So all these things are happening, and Elon Musk in last year also revealed plans to launch Tesla bot that will kind of start replacing humans for all the boring, repetitive work, right? And bots have been kind of, robots are being invested majorly, if you look at. SoftBank invested in a robot called Paper that was doing emotion reading. It got sold the whole bunch got sold in flat 60 seconds online, right? Then if you look at Honda, Asimo, or Samsung, or Amazon, everybody is investing a humongous amount of money in having robots. And not only that, right? Robots are also coming in other parts of our life where, you are talking and thinking about emotionally intelligent robots, right? That can kind of give company to somebody. Now the social question is, if you have too many such robots at your home, will that make your wife happy? Not will because these are like toys, right? But will that kind of raise questions? But people are talking about romantic robots as well, right? So don't be surprised if our grandchildren comes and says, oh, I want to marry Molly the robot, right? So very soon, that can also be possible. Now, while we are talking about so much of changes happening, while we are talking about this exponential thing happening around us, there is also a lot of, and I was very heartened to have that, and I also tweeted about the CISO discussion that was happening, because when we started back in 1990s, there was a lot of hope about technology, right? So we were saying technology will do this, technology will do that, right, and things like this. Now, in 2020, if you look at 22, there's a lot of fear. Are my passwords safe, right? So is my data safe? Is it safe to put up photos of family on Facebook or Insta, or is it unsafe? Because we do not know what's happening, with all these things. Is it safe to put my daughter's photo in my DP in WhatsApp? I have no idea. So, and there are many experiments, that have happened. For example, in Delhi here, when the Privacy Act was being discussed, there was a quick experiment that was done with a radio taxi, where a young girl from Bangalore in her mid-20s is trying to book a radio taxi, an app-based cab. Using the app, it was post-sunset. None of her contact list people were within 10 kilometers, and that app-based taxi company was proposing 30% higher tariff. Right now, so there is also many issues that comes up, right, with digital. For example, are the algorithms that are being used, are they safe? Does it have social kind of implication? Look at this, Nicholas Parry. Nicholas Parry kind of went into this, if I may say, use this word, intellectual prostitution, where he wanted to make his viewers happy and get their attention. He was a vegan violinist, and people didn't like that. That was very boring. When he started having fast food, people cheered him. He started having more fast food, then more cheer, even more fast food, more cheer. And this is what he was last year. And there are many such examples, right? So online dating, people are getting frauded. Government of Thailand said that Thailand is a land of teenage tears because it's one of the highest in Thailand's youth depression and suicide rates, right? So because different types of people come to Thailand, the algorithms of Facebook starts throwing pictures and videos of blonde models to their kids, and then these young kids try to become like them. Whatever they do, they don't look like them. They think that they are not beautiful. What is the way? Suicide, right? Blue whale, we are aware of. So a lot of these things, are happening around us. So what I'm saying, when you're talking about digital and digital business, there is this pendulum, and we as tech professionals, we need to be conscious about trying to bring the pendulum back in the center. So these are many examples, right? Say AI drone may have hunted down and killed soldiers with no human input and things. The question that comes up is, with so much of change happening around us, with so much of change that's driving each and every sector to go through change, and we kind of brought in examples of retail, healthcare, aviation, banking, automobile, any sector, you start taking up. How do we kind of think of create a strategic roadmap, right, for that kind of creates maximum value? So these are 4 key messages, when we kind of need to look at it, and these are one of the things that becomes important for us to understand if our organizations are designed in a way to cope up with disruption. I don't know, but how many of you have ever seen some of your corporate friends trying to help startups become successful, right? Because there is a design aspect to it. So what I will do is that I will bring in the data from US auto industry out of a PhD dissertation of University of Michigan in 1996. And this is what was happening in US auto industry, and I brought this data because a lot of industries, including automobile, is about to go through disruption. So if you start looking at the new entrants and the firm exits, you will see between 1894 and 1918 to 1919 to 1929, the number of new entrants were pretty high, right? After this, the number of new entrants started coming down. The number of patents being filed was highest between 1919 and 1941, right? So this is the number of innovations. And these are the 20 years where maximum exit of firms also happened. After that, the number of firm exits started coming down, right? What is that was happening? What was happening is that at that point in time, this is the point in time, in these 20 years, is where people were trying to figure out how should a motor car look like, right? And there are different permutation combinations that will be done. Somebody was saying the driver should sit on the top, somebody said the driver should sit at the back, somebody said, no, the driver, the dicky should be in the front, the engine should be at the back, and all those permutation combinations, and ultimately what happened is Ford's T model got accepted. By whom? By the market, right? So the market, the customers started coming and buying Ford T automobile. What actually happened is like this, that at one point in time, there was a disruptive product innovation that was happening. Then a dominant design came into place. This is what people started liking across whatever features you may say. So this is the time when we got to understand that a motor car need to have 4 wheels. The driver sits in the front. There is a gearbox, right? The design got framed up. Once the design got framed up, then there is no looking back, because that design of a car having 4 wheels and the driver sits in the front, the engine is in the front, if you have a dicky, then the dicky is at the back. That dominant design is still what automobile companies are doing. And then what happened is that all these organizations didn't look at disruptive product innovation, but they started looking at incremental process innovation, Kaizen. Can I bring down the cost? Can I increase my market share? Can I increase my revenue? So can I do process innovation? Not product innovation, process innovation, right? And understand that these two sides of organizations need 2 different types of organizations. What types? For example, the disruptive innovation side would need informal organizations, would need radical thinking to be encouraged, would need tolerance of failure to be high, would need limited hierarchy, flatter organizations. Yes, please.
So, you mean to say the incremental process innovation is nothing but the sustainability?
The growth phase, where the dominant design is fixed. So nobody is asking questions saying, in this car, shall we have 6 wheels? That's not being asked.
So, I mean, there in the disruptive product innovation, they have reached to a level of benchmarking.
They're still figuring it out. See, if you look, for example, the fintechs, as of today, they're still figuring it out. If you talk about the innovation that are happening in mobility sector, they're still trying to figure it out. When you talk about InsurTech, they're still trying to figure it out. Right now, an IIT Madras student along with a professor launched a company called ePlane.ai. Well, will we all start having, and the size is as good as a sedan, which basically means that it will come in the garage that we currently have. So will we still own cars 10 years down the line, or will we treat the normal cars, as we are treating as of today, as something like railway engines, right? We do not know. If we do not know, then definitely it's in a disruptive phase. We need to experiment. It may be
Another curve after some time.
Curve?
You go back, yeah. Because one was disruptive product innovation.
No, these curves, ऐसे नहीं है कि आज सुबह उठ के I kind of drew these curves.
Over the time.
So what is happening is, currently, is because of digital, what was dominant design is being questioned. So many organizations are trying to go here, go to left, and many startups are trying to go right. Right? Here is where you earn money because you scale up. Here is where you try to find out a dominant design. Right? And that has major implications for industry structure per se. Similarly, for process innovation, right, in this phase, then you are talking about emphasis, goals, you have good managers, structured, well-defined process. You say formal organization is important, right? You say, management skills becomes things of the day. So all those things happen. Now, many organizations try to grapple with this challenge, saying that, how do I manage this ambiguity, right? As an existing organization, I am here. So I have a definite formal organizational structure. I have sales guys. I have a CEO. I have finance guys. There's a process. That process improvement we are trying to do. On the other hand, if you have to drive disruptive innovation, then you would need a very different type of organization altogether, right? Now, a famous professor called Clayton Christensen, from HBS, did this study on floppy disk industry. Because secondary memory devices, if you remember at one point in time it was floppy disk, big size, small size, gone, CDs came, CDs went, rewritable CDs, gone, then your USB pen drives, gone, now everything is on cloud, right? And he saw that this is what happens in existing organizations a lot. Now, these are very good managers, right? And given the current revenue or performance measure, they are kind of doing well, they are giving year-on-year growth, right? And kind of things are happening pretty smoothly. Then there is someone over there who is a newbie in the market, maybe a current fintech or a mobility tech or an insure tech or somebody like that, or maybe a Netflix of tomorrow or God knows who, whose revenue and performance measures are very low, and then the question is, when I come to this point, I have the decision dilemma. Do I continue with this, or I close my existing business and I kind of start competing with this guy, right? And that's a humongous dilemma, because for many existing organizations, how do I, in an agile, dynamic way, do resource allocation is a very important question, right? How do I do this? Now, what typically happens is, if you look at ourselves, we never went back to Nokia and said, hey, you know what? Do you have a smartphone? Or I'm switching to a Samsung or Apple because they have a better phone. Customers, when they find that this is the feature that they want, and I come back to his question saying that customer experience, market makes a drastic shift. And that shift is extremely ruthless, right? When market shifts, it's a ruthless shift, right? So they will never kind of look at the existing business and what they are doing. Think of, and I will come to bring the Sony Netflix kind of example as well very soon. Now, so here at this point, this dilemma zone is what existing companies should be very extremely careful about. This is a point where good managers become bad decision makers, right? Do I continue in this business, whatever I have been doing, or do I switch right now? If I do not switch right now, maybe this guy will kind of outperform me, sometime. And there's what we are finding is that, an ambidextrous approach kind of help. And what is an ambidextrous approach? So typically having an inside-out approach where you encourage people to think of innovation, talk about what all can happen, help them think about the future, talk about digital kind of departure. And the other is an outside-in kind of approach, where you are talking about an open ecosystem of innovation. A lot of organizations are doing it, right? Volkswagen, P&G, HUL, everybody has an open innovation kind of network these days. So Coca-Cola, for example, we do a lot of work with Coke globally. And for Coke, they found that it's cheaper for them to go out and buy innovation than to do innovation themselves. Now, how do you manage? Most of the times, we found that existing organizations, with all their good intention, not bad intention, all their good, they want to guide their managers, their leaders want to guide the startups in how they can scale up. And that's the reason why they fail, because a mothership culture of an existing organization doesn't help a startup. They need a very different kind of culture, right? Please. Can I have a mic here, please?
In the previous slide, when you're saying about the dilemma, when it has become very essential, the organization cannot think of the dilemma. It is a kind of a requirement that a shift is necessary from the existing thought line to new business technological.
Yeah.
So why the dilemma zone should come in? Like for example, in the case of Nokia.
Because organizations don't know how to
Nokia,
shift.
it was a kind of a big mistake.
Do you think Nokia, just a minute, this is
Yeah.
very interesting. Do you think
Yeah.
the Nokia guys didn't know that Apple is coming up with a phone that would have something which was patented 40, 50 years ago called piezoelectric effect? You press, capacitance changes, and hence electric signal, piezoelectric effect we read in class 10, right? Do you think they didn't know? Of course they knew. Do you believe in the stories that Kodak didn't know? Of course they knew. That part will come, because we will also cover that 80% of Fortune 500 companies do not exist, right, in the Fortune 500 list. I'll just come. You'll also see the Nokia CEO crying. Don't worry. Yeah. Because of the dilemma. It's a humongous dilemma of how do I allocate resources. I will give you an example. One of the largest PSU banks, they want to drive innovation. Why do they want to drive innovation? They want to drive innovation because in the last 7 years, in the last 3 years, they have lost 7% of market share. And the chairman says, but we are the cheapest. And we told, but you are not the simplest. Doing business with your bank means you need to have jugaad, right? And you need to have connection, pull strings to get a home loan. With Amazonization happening, Uberization happening, the good news is that digitally savvy customers are okay to pay more. Otherwise, why are people buying eggs from Big Basket or Swiggy Instamart while they could have just gone down from their apartment and could have bought eggs? Even if you're buying samosa through Swiggy, you know you are paying 30% more. You are okay to pay 30% more because you want that convenience. Right? Now, and we'll come to that. We'll come to that very soon. Now, so when you talk about creating a strategy in the digital age, most of the times, we go and we kind of start talking and we ask people, have you ever used Porter's 5 force model, which was taught so well in your B school, if you had gone to a B school? Most of the times, for the last 10, 15 years, we are seeing that people are not using Porter's 5 force. At one point in time, Porter's 5 force, for creating strategy documents was being used. Because the dynamics of doing business has changed because of digital, right? So it's not a secret, right? So people have to know. In the Fortune 500 research that we are doing, when we went to the existing Fortune 500 employees and we asked them what are the top 5 priorities of their organization, would you believe 97% of those respondents don't know the top 5 priorities? Only 3% of respondents could respond top 5 priorities that their respective CEOs have agreed. We have not covered whole 500 till now. Around 275, 280 companies have been covered. So this is with a collaborator from London Business School. A number of times we saw that mission statement is a collection of very high emotional sentiment kind of words, right? And we got so excited with that we kind of started looking at those failed 400 companies. Failed in a sense that they are no more in Fortune 500 list. And we did a text mining on their mission statements. And we came up with this list. Buzzwords. We're about to publish. The beauty is you can choose any word from any column and you have a mission statement. Because anyways, 97% of the guys don't understand, don't even know what this organization is about. Somebody has to come and tell them, "Aaj ye kar lo," so then they do it. So the long-term vision doesn't exist. So you can do, so it's so easy. Create a disruptive mindset to crowdsource creativity, right? This is the mission statement. So you can kind of, right, just do like that. Strategy is about creating value. And when you say value, the value as per Nobel Prize 1981, James Tobin, when he kind of got Nobel Prize for Tobin's Q, is the difference between willingness to pay minus the cost of inputs. Right? WIP minus cost of inputs is the value that gets created. So the question is, how can we create value using digital technologies? Most of the organizations are still at a classical mode of getting more operational efficiency through automation using digital. Right? Many large organizations, you go and talk to them, what are you doing? Oh, I am automating my processes. I remember those early days 2000, many CIOs, we have completely digitized, don't have any manual, everything is in the CD, right? I think you also had kind of, but the challenge is how can we disrupt? How can we transform? If you look at, for a farm strategy today, what at time of Porter didn't exist in early 70s, that there was no age of networks, right? Now network effect has come into being. There were no platforms. So new business models that leverage networks and intelligence called platforms, lot of data with the IBM's 4V model, if you are aware, variety, volume, veracity, velocity of data coming in. You have to think differently about creating a digital strategy. Now, typically in the market, there are 3 types of players that are being seen. The first type of player are industry incumbents. These are the existing banks, insurance companies, automobile companies, right? So Disney, Time Warner and things. Then there are tech entrepreneurs. Tech entrepreneurs typically are trying to solve one problem in that industry, right? The fintech companies if you look at, or the insurtech companies that you look at. And then there are these big tech guys, they have become giants, right? So if you talk about Microsoft, Amazon, Apple. Now, typically, every industry is going through these 3 different phases of transformation. The first phase of transformation is experimentation at the edge. And what does this mean? This means that there are some new guys are trying to solve one problem, and industry biggies, incumbents are saying, these guys are the fintechs. Very interesting, right? Look at the way they are solving this problem. Zerodha, for example. Were people not aware of Zerodha? Of course they were aware of Zerodha, right? SBIs of this world and Kotaks of this world. Where do you think that they were unaware that somebody like Zerodha is coming up? No, but they didn't want to give any attention. Why? Because they thought that these guys have yet not reached a point to get attention. Very important point. To get attention of industry incumbents. After some point in time, when these companies grow, then the happiness goes, right? The same thing had happened at one point in time. At one point in time, Netflix started by sending CDs of movies by mail, and you can return it to Netflix by mail. They had to purchase copyrights from producers like Sony, right? So that they can send rental CDs. That's how it started, experimentation at the edge. When Uber was launched, General Motor guys were very happy because, of course, there are more and more taxis, so more and more GM cars are being sold. There is nothing to be unhappy about. After some point in time, they understood that the number of car sales are dropping while the miles per head being driven increased, which basically means people decided, customers, market decided not to buy General Motor cars anymore. There's where the collision starts. There where the collision at the core starts, right? They come and say, this is what is happening in banking industry, for example, right? Saying that, and big leaders, Uday Kotak, coming and saying openly came out in Economic Times that RBI should also look into regulating fintechs. Why? Why in 2022? Why not in 2019, 17? Because these are newbies. Let them play around. It feels good. Now it's serious. It's collision at the core. Once the collision happens, then there is no other way but a new business model, reinvention at the root, to come up. Look at what has happened with Sony Pictures. Look at why did Disney had to launch an OTT platform, right? At one point in time, you used to see all Disney movies in either Amazon Prime or in Netflix. So reinvention at the root, happens. And there's where, after this collision is where organizations start thinking, changing the core to digital. And the strategic traps, I promised you that I will show you the Nokia CEO crying, right? So when we start looking at some of the strategic traps of those 400 companies that we started studying, there are 3 major areas that comes up like a pattern across organizations. The first trap is the competency trap. And what do I mean when I say competency trap? Sir, if I am doing something and I am getting rewarded for that, then I will do it more and more, and I get more and more money. This is for a company for which an industry where the dominant design has already been decided. On this side, right-hand side company. Right? I will do it more and more. If I do it more and more, I will do innovation on that, and I will try to become answer to one question, saying that which phone to buy, Nokia phone, one question. That is my core competency. That is how market knows me, core competency. But as market shifts, as dynamics shift, it becomes very difficult for those organizations, it became very difficult for them to come out of this competency trap. Everybody knew Apple is coming up with a smartphone. The beauty is, people who were buying Apple on that Christmas Eve, standing outside a newly opened Apple store in New York and California, everybody had a Nokia phone in their pocket. So it's not a new product, right? But the organization got trapped in competency. The second trap is talent trap. They keep hiring the same kind of people more and more, such that it's very difficult, it becomes very extremely difficult for them to change. See, when you are trying to drive change, understand there is no mechanics, there is no engineering. People's mindset have to change. That is the OD way of changing. The other way of changing is the revolutionary way of changing, where you lay off people and you hire new guys. Change has that spectrum, right? One end is evolutionary, the OD way. Sikho, karo, dekho kaise hota hai, right? This, that. The training, evolutionary change. The other end is revolutionary change, saying kal se don't come from tomorrow. These companies couldn't come out of the talent trap. Motorola CEO made a public statement saying that we did not have engineers who can create a smartphone. The third trap that we are seeing is an ecosystem trap and something called relationship rent. Large companies, very large companies, behemoths, Fortune 500 companies, right? They have a humongous ecosystem in place. How difficult, for example, it is to replace a Amazon or a Google today. There are layers of ecosystem that you have to compete with. Most of the times, although the organization wants to change, they know this is the direction to go, they face the innovator's dilemma, but their ecosystem players being smaller would not have gathered enough competency to build new capabilities, and these organizations keep on saying, how can I come tomorrow and cancel the contract? They have been working with us for the last 50 years, right? So the organizations start paying a relationship rent. And on the contrary, when we see, and Fortune 500 is a very interesting data, because you know what? Today Mint has published something in Delhi about succession planning in PSUs. And we have been raising this issue since last 4 or 5 years. In 1995, China had 7 companies in Fortune 500. India had 3 companies in Fortune 500. In 2000, India had got 7 companies in Fortune 500. Number of Chinese companies started increasing. Today, we are very consistent. Today, 2021 data, India still has got only 7 Fortune 500 companies. A small country like Spain has got 21 Fortune 500 companies. China has got 134 Fortune 500 companies. The number of Chinese companies in Fortune 500 is more than American companies, right? Now, so we saw that when these new companies are kind of coming in and trying to kind of increase their revenue, they're basically playing on picking up initiatives, digital initiatives that are humongous in scope. They're able to scale it up very fast, and they are doing it with extreme speed, right? So that combination of scope, scale, speed is playing out very well. These companies have been able to come out of a process transformation mindset, a process automation mindset, and they are focusing more on transformation and disruption. Now, when we talk about creating value, and there was a question in Bombay when so either you start creating value using having more operational efficiency, or by increasing customer experience. Is an MIT study, and future-ready companies got 16 percentage more margin than their competition. There are only 4 pathways that you need to choose from, right? So whether you want to increase your customer experience and then kind of become more operationally efficient, and you can see that there are 4 different pathways, or you kind of launch a new company itself. But what I want to point out is, understand, even if you are trying to increase customer experience, after some point in time, you are actually increasing operational efficiency. If you are increasing operational efficiency, after some point in time, you are actually focusing more on customer experience. Now, when we are talking about creating a digital business model, we have been using this framework very successfully around multiple kind of organizations in different countries. And we are seeing that it's a digital culture that actually drives a digital business happening in an organization, right? So there are these 5 different kind of pillars that needs to look at. One is definitely the connected ecosystems, which basically means, when I say connected ecosystems, the question that you need to ask is, are you learning from your ecosystem partners, and how much relationship rent is you're paying? Digital products and services, are you able to do homogeneously heterogeneous digital products and services, hyper-personalized, right? How intelligent are your platforms? Are you able to connect your suppliers and customers as well through your platforms? How smart are the processes? These are agile processes, these are AI-based processes. However, everything drives from creating a digital culture. Now, if you start looking at world's top companies spending R&D, you will find it's kind of led by this online retailer called Amazon, much more than large automobile companies, Volkswagen, Daimler, Toyota, right? Jeff Bezos have always been saying that if you have to do innovation, then you have to need a culture that also embraces failure and is able to learn from failures. That's what he says. In 2018, later to his shareholders, he said, failure needs to scale too. Everything needs to scale at a size. If the size of your failure isn't growing, you are not inventing at the size that can actually move the needle. Many organizations have this fail-safe mindset, right? Now, how do you create that mindset? How do you kind of allow people to think of a future is very important. Now, when we are talking about innovation and adoption of innovation, there are 2 important things that I wanted to bring in. I have 13 more minutes left. Many a times, we see that organizations kind of start complaining about adoption of their technology products. Mostly, the first wave of adoption typically will happen through innovators and early adopters. And if you remember that Gartner's hype cycle, when the hype kind of comes down and then this is where the chasm is, right? This is where the chasm is. So this chasm has to be crossed. How do you cross? We'll discuss very quickly. And then the majority kind of market opens up. It's very important. Rogers' innovation diffusion theory is very important to figure out, where do I seed an innovation, right? Because where I seed an innovation would determine the direction of adoption and also the rate of change, right? Now, if you are launching a smartphone, obviously you will not launch a smartphone in a rural area, right? So where do you launch a smartphone? If you are launching something tech, initiative, where do you launch it? Who are the first kind of adopters becomes very important. And in most of the times, what happens, my daughter says, this guy looks like me. It's important to talk about these two very important theories, right? So one theory is, with more and more research, it's coming out that we actually have two minds. One mind has evolved over the last millions of years. The other mind, which is the cerebral cortex-driven mind, which can think about a future, think rationally, do calculations, has very fewer number of neurons. And that's what I was saying, is the neural load is high, right? And that's a linear projection from rodents to human beings. One of our colleagues from Yale, called Ravi Dhar, started doing this experiment with executive education leaders. When they were given cookies in the morning, everybody rejected having cookies because their mind can think of a future about trans sugar, trans fat, sugar, effect on health and things. The same set of people, when they were given cookies at 6 p.m. in the morning, everybody had a cookie. Then that experiment scaled, right? Google funded, Pepsi funded, everybody funded. So it's very important for us to understand what point in time you launch your or discussion or whatever you want to do, so that people can think about long term, right? Otherwise, most of the times, it's our reptilian. The second type of mind is the auto mind, right? So, for example, if I come and say, have you done this? You will immediately reply to me in an auto mode, right? So that most of the people are in that mode. And that becomes very important when we talk about the attention economy. Because, the businesses that we see around us, for example, if you're talking about the big tech companies like a Google or Amazon or YouTube or whatever, they are trading on our attentions. So what we say is that you pay attention, right? So you pay attention, and in return, you get to post your picture of your food in social media, Instagram. You pay attention, and you are able to see a video free of cost on YouTube, right? Now, so the attention economy becomes very important because most of the times, when you are talking about people scrolling through their mobile phones and things, they're actually not paying attention because there is so much of information overload, so many emails keep coming. How many of us would have been able to go through those emails and try to understand possibilities of any future repercussions? We just kind of delete, right? Now, a lot of research is also happening in, so when you're talking about attention economy, this is what the attention economy customers look like. And there was a question at the start, customer experience. Customers want to interact seamlessly across channels, expect products and services tailored to their life stage, homogeneously heterogeneous. They need their chosen provider to act with immediacy. If Swiggy, Instamart, or Big Basket sends me bad eggs, I want them to respond to me immediately, right? So I will immediately start chatting. Authenticity, so the guy on the other side should have necessary authentication to take a call. Findability, it's easily findable. Accessibility, right interpretation of their needs. Hyper-personalization we have discussed. Necessary interpretation. So the customers are no more customers. In attention economy, the customers are become patrons of their provider. This is very important because if you are happy with the service that you are using, there is a huge word of mouth that will spread. Right? You do not have to kind of go and give TV ads, perhaps. People will talk. They will talk. Have you used this? Have you used that? Because they think they are patrons of that product and service. Right? So the way we have to deal with customers in an attention economy, as we are kind of standing today, is very different. And that brings us to a very important part of behavioral biology and evolution. Look at this. You and I, we are not meeting 100 or 200 new people every day, right? When you start looking at your LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, Twitter accounts, you will see the same guys. Broadly, same guys. Other than somebody has found you and sent a friend request, that's a different matter, but broadly the same guys. Then why are we acting differently on Instagram versus on LinkedIn, right? Why are we trying to act more professionally in LinkedIn? Because there are certain parts of our brain that gets triggered in the way the design has been made, right? Current research shows that although a lot of us thought that human beings are not evolving using Darwinian theory and things like that, we are still evolving at a behavioral level. Certain set of behaviors are rewarded by society. And children of those people with those set of behaviors pass on the traits to the next generation, right? So the kind of behaviors that are kind of coming up in the society globally is a very interesting thing to look. A research by E.O. Wilson kind of shown that primates across the world, including human beings, across cultures, have a definite way of dealing with reptiles. They don't get scared. We don't get scared. It kind of creates a different sense of fantasy. So when you are talking about a lot of adoption, of digital adoption, understand there is a lot of primate behavior that by default comes into play. And what the research shows that in that primate behavior, the things that are driving us and are able to get our real attention are bread, which is food, sex, and tsunami, which is something which can kind of disrupt things, right? Bread, sex, and tsunami. This is what Professor Davenport said, that if you can focus on bread, sex, and tsunami, you will get the right kind of attention of people. And that kind of is pretty much you are seeing, right? That's what you say. Why do people post kind of food pictures? Why are women kind of posing like that? Why is it happens that people become curious if there is an earthquake in Delhi? So it's important for us to drive things that are easy for you, easy to use. That's what Steve Jobs had found from Picasso's bull. He found that it's much more complex to drive simplicity. Otherwise, why does the remote had so many buttons versus if you look at the classic remotes these days? Same functionality, but has become much simpler. Because most of the time, we are in our reptilian mind and our neurons are overloaded with information, we do not have time to sit and think and calculate about a future that can happen or may not happen. We are always in an auto mode. If we are on an auto mode, then simpler things will attract us. And as per this theory of technology adoption model, people find simpler things to be useful, right? So simplicity becomes a basis of competition. So with that, I would end my talk. Very happy to be here. Any questions, feel free to get in touch. Thank you. Thanks. Please. No, see, the biases and fairnesses as a trap is the bias and the fairness of bias of whom? The humans or the algorithms? Who made the algorithms? Not too much, still humans. Machines, but machines will gradually come. Yes, so understand, they have, these algorithms have a different objective function that they have to optimize, maximize or minimize. Right? That's what we mentioned about fair algorithm policy. It's not only important to have privacy protection laws, but it's also important for the government to come and have a fair algorithm policy so that whatever algorithms are being used in whichever apps or formats, bots, whatever, by citizens. Because the government has given permission for these companies to run in the country. I am a taxpayer. I should be fearless. Right? That's the point. Thank you.